Hello and welcome to State Scoop's Priorities Podcast. I'm Colin Wood, State Scoop's Editor-in-Chief. Last week, I interviewed Tarek, who will soon step down as Minnesota's Chief Information Officer. But first, here's what's happening this week. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey on Friday announced that the state's 40,000 executive branch employees will receive access to a ChatGPT-powered artificial intelligence assistant, a first for state government. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey on Thursday announced a new statewide board tasked with ensuring that emerging technologies are deployed securely and responsibly. And Nevada's technology department last week announced a new policy aimed at uniformly classifying the state's data, a once arcane practice gaining celebrity in an age of AI and cyber attacks. After nearly 7 years as Minnesota's Chief Information Officer, Tarek announced this month he's moving on for a CIO job with the University of Minnesota. I wanted to know about what his time was like with the state, how he weathered the pandemic, what it was like working under a vice presidential nominee, and whether a university job was something he'd been specifically searching for.
I will be moving into the role as Vice President, Chief Information Officer for the University of Minnesota college system, a collection of 5 campuses across Minnesota, and really, consider it just such an exciting opportunity. The university has a new president, a really vibrant vision. There's, new leadership in place at the university and such incredible history. And I just think the intersection between the research mission of the University of Minnesota, land grant institution, one of, 100 some odd land grant institutions in America, the opportunity to play some small part as it relates to how digital services support learning environments for students, a place where really the future is invented. I remember, many, many years ago in my career when I was actually still in Germany, and this kind of newfound thing, the internet came about, and I was playing with this little tool called Gopher. And little did I know at that time that Gopher tool was actually an invention and creation of the University of Minnesota, and really a kind of a full circle moment. And so to be able to
is that like a packet sniffer, or what does Gopher do?
No, it was kind of a way that you navigated the internet to search for content in a kind of command line driven manner. If you look it up, the Gopher tool holds a prominent place in computing history as it relates to the internet. But, I didn't know at the time, I didn't even know that at the time that was the mascot of the University of Minnesota. I'm pretty sure. Twin Cities campus, that is. But, to be a part of a research institution, vibrant learning environment, that, technology will play such a prominent part as it relates to attracting students and retaining students and connecting students to alumni and supporting research and, new learning environments. I consider it just such an amazing, incredible opportunity.
Right. And so I want to get something out of the way that, so you posted, either you or the state posted something about your job change on LinkedIn. And one of the first comments I saw was from Doug Robinson, the executive director of NASCIO, and he was asking about your socks. So what was he talking about?
A few years ago, I was doing some keynote panel at NASCIO, and I think then CIO for the state of Texas, Amanda Crawford, and I, and maybe one or two others, conspired to surprise Doug, along with, I think it was actually maybe the brainchild of some NASCIO staff members, that we would surprise Doug on stage by having Doug's socks on. And so there are socks literally with his picture on it that we wore on stage just as a surprise.
Okay, so my article mostly got that right, except these are bootleg NASCIO socks. These are not official NASCIO socks, it sounds like.
these are collector items.
Oh, yeah.
I might actually put them on eBay one day, just to see at auction how many people bid on, the Doug socks.
If you could ever bring yourself to part with them. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that's careful consideration there.
Right. So, what was it like working with Tim Walz?
It was really amazing from day one, and I couldn't be more appreciative of the opportunity that he gave me, and that he really gave the technology organization within the executive branch, and really the opportunity, which is anything that anyone in our roles could ever wish for, is high expectations. Just a confidence and an expectation that technology would be at this intersection of being an engine for government and ushering new opportunities and important policy program areas. Uh, I can remember almost exactly where I was standing when he offered me the job. And at the end of the conversation, we kind of had an agreement with one another, probably a little bit more of an ask of me related to no surprises, and that we would work incredibly transparent with one another. And this was pre-COVID, and along the way in the last 7 years, there were no shortage of surprises. And so I think about that at times, just the ups and downs. And I think one of the things that he did that was really remarkable, and I still don't know, if personally I embody this, but I definitely have seen it always in our cabinet, and certainly something that I aspire to. A servant leadership approach was, really a non-negotiable for the types of people that he looked for in leadership roles. And when I think about the work that, we did through crisis, through opportunity, through modernizing critical areas, through all the various cycles over 2 terms, that kept coming out more and more, that being a servant leader, really was at the core of how this work and this One Minnesota plan was approached. I had a chance to be with him every day at times, during the toughest of times during COVID, where you don't see, politicians, where you see only human beings that really have an immense responsibility as it relates to, how can I help people in a moment of crisis? And when you see the empathy and the compassion and the, selflessness that work was approached to, certainly many decisions that are not popular, during those types of times. They were never done, though, with a personal consideration of like, is this a politically savvy decision? They were always done in the best interest of, is this what's best for people in Minnesota? And, sometimes that gets lost, right? The rhetoric, gets loud, and the, the this and that, and a hard way of finding our way back to the truth sometimes. But when you get a chance to have that behind the scenes, when you're making, or a part of really difficult decisions, I think you do get to see the core of what's within people. And that continually, got embedded. Really incredibly proud of the state rolling out paid family medical leave program that has already benefited tens of thousands of people that are now able to stay home and take care of a child, or stay home with an elderly family member that needs help. And those types of programs, as it relates to fighting childhood poverty or other things, like as a technologist, when you get to lean into that work, it's just incredibly meaningful.
Right. And the pandemic was very much in that vein. I think the role of CIOs was really illuminated. That was one of the big stories from pandemic and just technology generally, that how important it was. And it was a wake up call for a lot of organizations, just that where a lot of their weak points were. What do you remember from going from, I guess it was March 2020, when things really started to get real for everybody, going
Yeah.
from then and going forward? What can you recall in terms of what needed to be done and how you addressed that work?
Yeah, one of the things that will always, stay with me, and I think everyone feels like this probably in the function areas, that you're in. But one of the things that will always stay with me is just how the technologists in Minnesota ran towards, opportunity when, there was certainly a lot of uncertainty, I'm sure, in their personal lives. Technologists really rose up whether it was in the immediate aftermath of, supporting a work from home environment, for 45,000 people instantaneously and developing new processes. Wherever there was a need, there was a hand going up from a technologist, that was, I think we can do that. I think we can craft a solution. I think we can make that work in a way that really, I think, spurred confidence in the transformative, impact that technology can have for the years afterwards. And in particular, in the speed. I can still remember when, news came that the first COVID vaccines would be available, 20,000 doses in the first, week for Minnesotans, with over 1 million people eligible for those 20,000 doses, right? Like, that is a huge challenge with how do you decide who, and how do you put the digital capability in place that allows for those 20,000 doses to be distributed as fast as possible. And I remember, people in tears as, they, essentially had a ticket to go receive a vaccination doses, and that the digital technology really reduced stress because we didn't make it a, each week, come hit the enter button and apply for this, and then you're waiting. We created a mechanism where you can sign up, and you can sign up, at any point in time. And then a lottery was ran that determined, who had access and the data work. And so, really the enduring memory was really two things. One, just technologists just really meeting the moment, and the confidence that the executive branch really had in that solutions could be crafted in a timely manner to meet those moments. And I think that confidence has really been a springboard forward, not just for public sector, but for technology organizations, really across the globe.
Right. Speaking of kind of wonky behind the scenes IT stuff coming to the forefront, it was kind of a moment for us when I forget which outlet it was, some local paper picked up that Tim Walz had said that Minlars was keeping him up at night. And I thought that was not surreal exactly, not to that extent, but it was interesting to hear something, this thing that, you'd think would be not necessarily a big deal for him was apparently bothering him. Is that something that you, I don't know how the division of labor goes with those sorts of projects. Was that something that you worked on much?
Yeah, it was really the very first thing, when he offered me the job, it was, and we have to fix this. It was something that his administration inherited. It was, considered to be, in a bipartisan manner, a service area that really needed to be improved, and technology was, kind of at the core of that opportunity. And in a bipartisan way, together in partnership with the legislature, we at the time had a group that the governor commissioned called the Blue Ribbon Council on Technology, and with the chairman at the time of that Blue Ribbon Council, I knew that modernization wasn't going to be a problem. What was difficult 10 years ago certainly isn't difficult, now, and wasn't difficult like every year. Even large scale modernizations, with the right experience and wherewithal, are more and more manageable with the right vendor partners. And fixing that was kind of a core campaign promise. And within the first year of his administration, we certainly delivered that.
Right. And I guess I should have, for anyone who doesn't know, that was the Minnesota licensing and registration system. So it's kind of like DMV or whatever your version of the DMV is. It was an ongoing, major, expensive, way over budget, way over deadline project that eventually got sorted out under Walz. So, okay, well, that sounds like it was maybe not a super fun project, but were there any that you are that you consider your favorites, or things that you think exemplify the work you did during your time with the state?
In some ways, I mean, it's almost like picking, favorites from, family members and kids. I certainly, anything that has this large impact on people and improving opportunities for people, sits at the core. I think the driver and vehicle services modernization was incredibly fun. There was just a lot to it, and ultimately it led to much higher satisfaction and confidence by people that are interacting, whether they're getting a driver's license or the license plates or registering a vehicle. The way you expect that to work, and the digital services that underpin that really respect people's time. Moments when we were able to use new data sources, maybe Medicaid eligibility to provide food benefits for children in Minnesota. Really meaningful when you're able to extend food benefits in the summer, for 300,000 children, and there's a technology underpinning related to that. Modernization from a workers' compensation perspective. One of the things that I'm incredibly proud of is the work related to modernizing Minnesota's child welfare information system. The families and children that are within the child welfare system, when they become adults and they come back and they ask, how did the state help me? They really deserve and should look at, the technology underpinnings that social workers and people that are responsible for helping them, that they have everything that they possibly can have to really create a bright future for those kids in the child welfare system. I think ultimately it's the culture, though. It's a culture that from the legislature to the administration to the cabinet now looks towards technology as being this transformative engine, whether it's prepayment review work for Medicaid claims, or whether it's rolling out paid family medical leave in a time as expected, delivered on schedule, on budget, in a really integrity high, customer centric manner. The transformations that have happened across the executive branch, really across all digital service in so many different areas. But that culture is the most important one. A culture where there's confidence that the technology organization, not only can deliver, but that they're really a core part of the business. Like, they change the results, and they are a tangible part of achieving positive results for government.
Right. Well, I think that's what everyone kind of looks for in their work, right? You don't want to just be showing up every day and
that's right,
for no reason. So this question kind of goes back to what you talked about when you're first interviewing for the job, and looking forward to what the role would entail. Did you have an idea of what, obviously you didn't know the pandemic was coming, or at least I hope you didn't. And did you have an idea of what this job would be? And then, the follow up to that is how did things turn out compared to your expectations? Was there anything unexpected about this job, or how did you think about that?
I think I had an idea, but anyone, coming into a job like this, depending on your background, there are 2,500 technologists that work in our organization, one technology organization for the entirety of the executive branch, and such a diverse group of agencies, if you will, everything from healthcare to unemployment insurance to state parks, such a diversity of business needs that are met. So it's a lot of complexity. It's a lot to get your arms around, and certainly we approached it very ambitiously, and we continually I walk into meetings and I continually just want everyone to know that if there is anything that you think technology can help as it relates to business outcomes, don't ever hesitate to have high aspirations. Like, don't settle. When we have systems that are old or not performing well, it's because we choose to have them. It's not because we have to have them. And changing that mindset, that ultimately collectively we have choice over how services are delivered. That culture component of it, was something that I knew I was going to walk every day to try to espouse a human-centered approach to change and opportunity. And that change is hard, though. Organizational change management, as things change that have been in place for many years, is difficult. If there was, something that, was really just, I think, wonderful, and I can't compare it to a lot of different cabinets, but over the 7 years that I was in this role, the people that I worked with, the cabinet that was a part of the Walz Flanagan administration, was never siloed. The interagency work that occurred, the partnership between commissioners of any agency, and I don't think that always exists. I think in many instances, those silos where that cross-agency spirit and collaboration sometimes stymies progress, and so I think that really set the foundation for really making so much positive change happen.
Right. Well, for the next administration and the next CIO, we don't know who those people are going to be yet. Do you want to put something in a time capsule for those people with regard to the CIO job? What would you say to them?
Wow, that's that is a fantastic question. I mean, I think the one thing I would say for any incoming administration, and this everything from the federal level to state levels, is I do think that technology is the engine of government in many different ways, and you have to have a incredibly strong technology team to implement whatever policy aspirations you may have. If you think about, policy aspiration related to paid family medical leave, if you don't have the business and technology partnership to actually make that happen, then you only have that aspiration. And so investing in a very forward-oriented, delivery-oriented technology organization is really, really important. You cannot think of technology organizations as those that run data centers and networks and servers. That is not it. You have to think of them as really being fundamental contributors to the outcomes that you're aspiring to. And then I think the partnership across government, local forms of government, connecting with tribal nations and counties as it relates to the human services space, and in our case, the Department Children, Youth, and Family space, that partnership and togetherness, when the service delivery, really is a continuum of funding provided at the federal level, that is administered at the state level, and ultimately the services are delivered at the county or tribal nations level, require a partnership and collaboration that has to be deep. And I would just continue to really build on that, because I think in Minnesota, really we're on the brink of a really terrific joint vision. And ultimately that impacts so many people that rely on those types of services. Be aspirational. Like, no ask should be too big for the technology organization.
A thanks to Tarek Tomes for appearing on the podcast. That's it for this episode. The Priorities Podcast is a production of Scoop News Group in Washington, D.C. Production work is done by Adam Butler and Carlin Fisher. I'm Colin Wood. Thanks for listening.